there's many, many different ways that you would say the world meditates. They're not all wrong. They're not all bad. But they're, you know, and some of them, which are more mindfulness, there's a difference between transcendental meditation, which is based in a religious sense, to get you to be enlightened in a religious sense, is very different from mindfulness, which is a technique which helps you to live in the moment and not be subject to fear, anxiety, or worry, because you stay in a place of rest. And each moment you learn to focus in that moment, and you don't sort of get carried away in going into tomorrow and worry and anxiety. You know, so some of those mindfulness techniques are nothing to do with any sort of religious or even spiritual dynamic. They're very much a practice which just helps people to become focused and still in their own being, and therefore not to be going round and round and round in their mind. So it's a stilling of the mind, which can bring them to a place of peace, which means then they're not anxious, worried in any way. So there's nothing wrong in that. If you add Jesus into that, obviously it's going to be better, because when we become mindful, what are we going to become mindful of? You know, ultimately, if we focus on being mindful and engaging with the truth, then that's going to help us in any situation. Now, the difference between that and transcendental practices and practices which use drugs or other things, and there are so-called believers who are teaching people to use mescaline and, you know, ayahuasca or whatever it's called and stuff, to actually promote experiences, to open you up to spiritual experiences. I would say avoid those things completely, because I don't believe that God intends us to use drugs to have an experience or to meditate, because no need to, you know. Now, does that mean that God hasn't met people in LSD trips or mushroom trips or whatever? No, he has, because he'll take every occasion of getting in there and revealing himself. But it doesn't mean just because he has with some people, that's a validation of the practice. You know, I mean, there are those, you know, who are calling it, you know, shamanistic snuff. I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff out there, which I would say avoid it completely, because it will not have any frequency of God on it. That's for sure. Now, some practices which are more connected to a philosophical or a religious Eastern mindset will be getting you to empty your mind so something can fill it. That is totally opposite of any sense of biblical meditation. Being still and knowing that I'm God is because we are focusing our thoughts on God, not emptying our head of all thought. Christian meditation is focused on something specific. That could be on Father, Son, and Spirit. That could be on love. It could be on, but you're not emptying your head and basically inviting anything to come and fill it. Invite the universe in, or invite, well, if you're doing that, and the motive behind all of that would be deceptive, because it will be to draw people into a dark thing, which will always deposit something negative, you know. Now, just because there is a negative doesn't mean there isn't a righteous real behind it. You know, the Bible very clearly talks about meditation and never talks about study. And yet we've turned Christianity into a religion of study. Study the word. You know, well, actually, it doesn't say study the word. You know, where in the King James version, where it talks about, you know, study the word to find yourself approved and all of that, the word study is a mistranslation of the word be diligent, which just means, hey, pursue this with consistency. You know, that is very different. You know, so you could go to one extreme of avoiding all forms of meditation because it's all dangerous, and therefore stick to study and your own understanding and miss out on so much. But I would be not cautious, but I would be discerning about what you pursue and what you don't pursue. And, you know, it would take me 2 seconds to discern whether something had a negative vibe on it. Now, there are mindfulness things out there that are using principles, basic principles, which I believe can be helpful to a lot of people, even if those people aren't actually specifically connecting to Jesus, but they are looking to engage love. They are looking to engage a place of joy and thankfulness and gratitude and forgiveness that I think are very helpful. And when I was looking at meditation, because it wasn't something I'd really, I've talked about it within the Engaging God program and other things in my journey of learning to meditate in the Bible and then learning to meditate experiencing God directly. But I never really put it together into anything which was sort of, well, here's how you do it sort of thing. Until, in looking at this, I got an email in my inbox which talked about mindfulness. And because I was thinking about it at the time, I thought, well, okay, what's this? So I looked at it, and it was, I think, from some sort of website with an organization. I think it's Mind Valley or something. And I looked at and they had a few little clips of things, and I immediately felt, no, there's nothing in the basic form here. There's nothing wrong with this. They're helping people to try and focus, to be positive, to be grateful, to be thankful, to have a positive attitude. There is no religious philosophy here. This is about learning to become more content and happy and satisfied in life. Now, it didn't directly have Jesus in it, whatever. No, but they did have a process for it. And I actually, when I was doing that, I thought, well, this is very, very similar to the process I live by every day. I've just never put it together in all its aspects into a process like that. So I did. So I pulled together meditation for rest, and that was a 3 sort of part thing. And there was a fuller 7-part thing, which really about meditation and mindfulness and focus and, establishing a framework for the day in love and in joy and peace, and choosing to live in that attitude of thanksgiving and all of that stuff, which is, even to the medical profession, is very much shows, and through science and through, actually, that gratitude is a very positive thing towards health and wholeness, mentally and physically. That this was good. And I'd been doing this for years without really sort of putting it. So I put it together, and for me, that now is part of, I don't go through the meditation process in a set form like that, because that's how I live. But for me, that is a very helpful way of beginning to frame your life from the heart of God on a daily basis, only wanting to do what the Father's doing, living, love, loving, living, loving, in that whole dynamic. That's really, how I would encourage people to learn how to do it. But ultimately, it's finding your own relational way with God that works for you. Hi, everyone. We're starting a Patreon page, patreon.com/freedomarc. And we would like to invite you to partner with us in taking the message of God's unconditional love, limitless grace, triumphant mercy to a bigger global audience.